Hi folks, Tim Sundles here. We are in Africa, as you can see. Today I actually want to do a class on something that is misunderstood quite a bit in the gun industry. And when Kim talked me into starting this YouTube channel, I told her that my main goal was to dispel myths and to educate the shooting public, because not everybody out there shooting owns an ammo company and designs ammunition and sells millions of rounds of ammo per year and gets feedback and gets to see issues arise with certain makes and models of guns. So not everybody has the background. In fact, almost nobody has the background to learn this kind of thing in the first place and then to share it with others. So if we are to be of any service to our fellow shooters, there are a number of things that I'll be covering in the next year that are actually important information. And today I want to talk about sticky extraction of fired casings from your chambers, be it a revolver, a semi-auto, bolt action, doesn't matter. First, there's a couple things we need to talk about. Ammunition has no moving parts. They are fixed until a primer gets ignited. I mean, you've got the bullet, the brass, the powder, the primer. That's it. Real fixed dimensions. Now, there can be faulty ammo, no doubt. But generally, when something goes wrong when you're trying to shoot ammo, it's the firing mechanism. Now, I don't see guns as just guns because I work with them on a daily basis when I'm at the factory. I see guns as firing mechanisms. And firing mechanisms have a number of moving parts that all must operate within a certain tolerance in a certain way at a certain time. I mean, we got time tolerance going on here too, in order for things to work right. So I would say, and I'm pulling this number out of my butt from decades of experience of making millions of rounds a year, I would say that 90% of the time, when there's an issue with a cartridge firing, it's traced to the actual firing mechanism, not the ammo. Now, like I said, you can certainly have ammo that has a number of different problems, but ammo is pretty fixed. You got fixed tolerances in the ammo, and perhaps you get ammo that's out of tolerance. I mean, it can happen. But with all the moving parts in a firearm and all the tolerances required to make it ignite a primer correctly and then develop pressure and send a projectile down a barrel at high velocity, all in a millisecond, the gun, the firing mechanism, has to be right. So, and that's a lot more complex than having your ammo be right, I promise. Let's talk about sticky extraction of fired casings, and let's start with revolvers. When you're dealing with a double action revolver that generally holds 6 rounds, and you fire 6 rounds, and you go to extract the fired casings, remember, you're extracting 6 at once, versus a single action revolver. When you extract the fired casings, you're extracting the fired casings one at a time from a single action, generally speaking. So a double action will show flaws, minor flaws, long before a single action will, because you're extracting 6 times the ammo. If there's any problem with extraction, it's magnified by 6. So let's talk about what's going on in the firearms industry. Guns are mass made. And there are some real exemptions to that. I mean, you can buy high quality guns like Freedom Arms revolvers They are not necessarily mass made. I mean, they still are, but they're kind of a custom revolver. When you mass manufacture guns, there's all kinds of things that can go wrong. And the chief cause of sticky extractions of fired casings in revolvers, frankly in any kind of gun, is reamer wear and reamer chattering when they're reaming out the chambers. So with revolvers, as they're reaming out 6 chambers, there's actually considerable reamer wear from the first chamber to the last chamber. Never mind the 20 other cylinders that they will ream 6 chambers in that day with the same reamer, or maybe more than 20. So what happens is, as the reamer wears, as machinery wears, things can get loose and you'll get this chatter, 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 chatter from your reamer. Or with a dull reamer, you'll get a little bit of chafing inside the chamber. Well, the chamber walls really need to be mirror smooth, and I mean mirror smooth. Well, that's not what's happening in modern firearms manufacturing. They don't take the time, because if they did, they'd have to charge $100 or $200 more per gun. And this is some of your fault out there, because it might be that a lot of shooters, the first thing they look at is price, and then they whine and bitch. Clint Smith always called them turd suckers. And I think that's pretty descriptive of people that whine and bitch about everything. So gun manufacturers are under this tremendous pressure to make it fast and make it cheap. Well, okay, when you do that in the manufacturing of a precision item, it ain't gonna be so precision. And it'll cause problems. Now, most people think, well, gee, I fired the ammo and now the empty casing won't extract, so that's the fault of the ammo, because it's a component of the ammo that won't extract. Again, guns have multiple moving parts that all have to function within a minimum specification, within a tolerance. And when the tolerance is off even a little bit, ammo will look like the culprit, but it's really the gun. The gun is 10 times more complex than the ammo. Let's go into, I mean, this same thing actually, folks, applies like when you're shooting velocities out of a revolver through a chronograph. You've got 6 individual chambers with chamber throats that are individual. They are not all the same. So I've had people denigrate my ammo because they shot it out of a 6-shot revolver and they got a high extreme spread in the velocity. Say they got 70 feet a second extreme spread. Well, it's not because of the ignition of the ammo. I engineer all that into the ammo in my test guns. What it is varying chambers, varying chamber throats. You got 6 of them there. They're not all going to be the same unless it's a highly precisely made custom revolver. Like, we've got Jack Huntington makes really precision guns. So does Hamilton Bowen. I think both of those guys are on the verge of retirement. Dave Clay used to do the same. I don't even know if Dave Clay's in business anymore. I was having custom revolvers made 30 some years ago, even 40 years ago. So, I'm way out of the loop on the new custom makers. I keep hearing great things about Donnie Wells. And I just had a hunter here that killed a Cape buffalo with a Donnie Wells made revolver built basically on a Ruger Blackhawk frame. It was a 500 Linebaugh. And I don't want to spill the beans. I think that hunter, Shane Jan, will be doing a lot of articles about the hunt, but I witnessed it firsthand. I guided him. So back to the sticky extraction of fired casings. In a semi-auto pistol, you've got 1 chamber, not 6. And as long as your extractor is tuned right, it'll grip the case head, the rim, and it'll eject the casing. If you get a really bad rough chamber, your extractor may pop right off the case head and leave the case stuck in the barrel, at which point you're going to blame the ammo. You can get away with a minimal amount of chamber roughness if all you ever shoot is standard pressure ammo. When you compare standard pressure to, say, plus P or plus P plus, when you fire a standard pressure round in any chamber, the brass expands and lets go of the bullet, and the powder turns into hot gas and propels the bullet down the barrel. Well, your brass just expanded into the chamber walls, and if it's just minimally rough, probably no problem because it's a standard pressure round. But if you go to plus P ammo or plus P plus ammo and fire the same bullet with just a different powder or more of it, either way, at much higher pressure to get higher velocity, that case will expand and hit the chamber walls and grip the chamber walls. It'll grip that roughness because your chamber walls are not mirror smooth. So you get people all the time blaming the ammo when it's really the gun. And I can't blame gun manufacturers for doing things in a hurry. It's a very competitive market, and people will make a major buying decision on a gun that's potentially a life and death decision based on the price. I mean, that's scary. And I know we've all got budgets, and I know, we've all got limitations. But if you think about what I'm saying, there needs to be much more consideration than the price. A lot more consideration than the price. So generally, I test a gun a lot, and if there's failures to extract, I polish the chamber. That's easily done. You take a Dremel tool, some polishing compound, you maybe start with a heavier grit and really polish the chamber or chambers. Then you go to the finer grit and put the mirror smooth finish on it. Then you clean it all up, put everything back together, and test it again. I bought, and I've told this story before, but not on YouTube, I bought a Lipsy's exclusive Ruger 480 Ruger on the Super Blackhawk frame. And I was really happy that Ruger made these. It was way overdue. And so the first thing I did, of course, when I buy a gun, I test the heck out of them. First thing I did was put our low pressure load in the 480. It's really low pressure, and the case is stuck. I could take the extractor and dun, 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 like with a screwdriver handle and punch the brass out, and I thought, oh man, we got rough chambers here because that's really low pressure ammo. Then I put our full powered high pressure ammo in the 480 and fired it, and I mean, I had to take the cylinder out. I had to put it in a vise and get a wooden dowel and a hammer to beat the brass out. So I contacted Ruger. I sent them, they asked me to send the whole gun back, so I sent the whole gun back. And they sent me the same gun back, but with a new cylinder. Well, I could have fixed the cylinder that was in there just by polishing the daylights out of it. And maybe I would have had to polish it all the way out of tolerance. I don't know. But I could look when I would clean it, I could look at in the chambers, and I could see roughness with the naked eye. When you can see chattering marks and, machine marks and roughness with the naked eye, you got a problem. Unless all you want to do ever is like shoot target ammo out of it. This one had a problem with even the target ammo. And I see this all the time. I've seen it in Smith & Wessons, Rugers. I've seen a ton of it in Taurus's. I've seen it in every make of handgun that is mass produced. I've even seen it in the vaunted Freedom Arms, which are pretty much a handmade gun. I had one early on, clear back in 1986, that had issues. But since then, they've been flawless. They've had, chambers that were mirror smooth. So I needed to cover, I just looked down at my notes, and I usually do these videos without notes because what I'm talking about is in my heart and head. But often my wife, if it's a subject she knows anything about, which she doesn't really on this one, she'll remind me of little points I'm leaving out. I try to cover these things in principle, in theory. I don't want to get into particulars because it's the principle that matters. And if you apply the principles I've talked about, whether they're grossly on or minutely on, they're not off. They're correct. And so if I get a ballistician looking at this going, well, you didn't talk about the blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I know I didn't, and I didn't on purpose because I want to hold an audience. But folks, when you get sticky extraction, chances are really good that you have rough chambers. And I've seen it. I saw a revolver once that was built by Hamilton Bowen on a Red Hawk frame, and he used the original cylinder from Ruger. It was a Ruger Red Hawk. And he built it for Ashley Emerson, who's a friend of mine. Well, he used the stock cylinder and just fitted everything properly. Made the gun right, but never checked the chamber walls for roughness. Ashley gets the gun and shoots it with some high performance ammo, and the brass is hopelessly stuck in the chamber. Ashley calls me. He goes, what do I do about this? I can't believe this coming from Hamilton. I said, well, it's not Hamilton's fault if he used a stock Ruger cylinder and just didn't think to check it for roughness. And so I said, clean those chambers, get in there with a bore scope and look at them. And he did. And he called me back. He goes, they're rough as a cob. I said, get your Dremel tool out, get some polishing grit, make them mirror smooth. And I'm willing to bet. And I'm not much of a betting man. I don't bet unless there's a really high likelihood I'm right. I said, I'm willing to bet that'll solve your problem completely. You can shoot at high pressure loads as you want to shoot if you'll do this process times 6, because there's 6 chambers in a cylinder. So a day or 2 or 3 goes by, he calls me up and he goes, boy, were you right. And now Ashley is super knowledgeable, and now this was before he owned Garrett Ammunition. Now he owns his own ammo company, and he gets to run into these kinds of things all the time, like I've been doing for 30 plus years. And so there is much to be learned, and there is much to share and to teach to those who want to learn. And so this little episode covers one tiny aspect of the wide field of firearms usage and ammo usage in firearms. And hi folks, Kim and I just finished the video on sticky extraction of fired casings. And as soon as we ended the video, Kim just was talking, and it reminded me of some things I should have said. And I've said this in other videos, and I said it at the beginning of this video, but it needs to be reinforced. Test the daylights out of any gun that you plan to really use for an important use. Guns aren't a toy, at least not to me. And so if you've got a certain ammo you want to use in that gun, test it. And if you run into any problems, then you can start the investigation and the fixing problem, because generally there's a fix to every problem. It's just that we don't always understand what the source of the problem is. So just test. In every way possible, test. And that way, whether you're just on an expensive hunt or whether your life is at stake, you know the quantities and qualities of your gun ammo combination, and you don't have to worry. And like I've said a million times, if you're just going to go out and bounce tin cans around, that's all your gun is for, this doesn't matter so much. But I don't have any guns like that. My guns are all for serious using, or at least they need to be considered as serious use guns should I need them or decide to use them as such. And anyway, folks, please excuse this little addendum, but But Kim's right. I don't think I emphasized enough. Don't just go buy a new gun and shoot a couple of brands of ammo or a cylinder or two of ammo or a few magazines of ammo and think your gun is broken in, think you understand the gun. Shoot it fairly extensively, and I know that costs money. There's no way to do this gun and ammunition thing right without spending money. It's just the way it is. It's all about your priorities. Anyway, again, just a little addendum. God bless again, and please have a great day. We'll see you on the next video. Thank you.